All right, CM Punk made his return to Chicago on Monday's edition of Raw. There was a lot happening. If you haven't already checked it out, we did a previous video on The Rock's beatdown of Cody Rhodes in the parking lot in the rain. There was a lot to take away from that. But you also had another segment of the year type scenario here with CM Punk making his return to Chicago, and he took aim at multiple people. And then you had Drew McIntyre come out, you had Seth Rollins come out. We had a lot in this one segment. And I think that is kind of the point, is that WWE's ability now to cram so much into one segment that is meaningful, not just filling time. You're not just out there saying, hey, we're giving you guys 20 minutes, try to get as much as you can out of it. They hit every little tiny note I thought they could hit in this particular segment, and I thought it was a tremendous job. And it really started from the very beginning, where you had a scenario where CM Punk comes out with the microphone. The crowd is eating it up, of course. And what does he do immediately? Like, he takes aim at Roman Reigns, who's not even a part of this, trio of story here that you've got with Punk, Rollins, and McIntyre. But he takes aim at Roman Reigns. And I thought it was good to kind of give that hint that, hey, everybody, in case you forgot, we've still got another Roman Reigns match out there. Not just with Cody Rhodes, not just with The Rock. We've got a Roman Reigns match against CM Punk at some point. And I thought the hint from Punk was great, because what did he say specifically? Punk said that he'll see Reigns as he, CM Punk, climbs the mountain and Reigns moves down the mountain, which is perfect because that's what we all expect, right? We expect CM Punk to keep climbing the mountain now as he goes back up. He returns from injury, gets a shot at a world championship. We expect Roman Reigns to maybe start moving down that ladder if he loses to Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania 40. Lots of things in play just in that one little, exchange there where you have CM Punk taking aim at Roman Reigns. But also from there is where things picked up, as you had Seth Rollins and Punk kind of calling out Seth Rollins. He made the jabs at Drew McIntyre. But again, what else did they do? They added another match in there that reminds you, look at all these money matches they have, because CM Punk mentioned The Rock and, kind of talking about the promo and everything. You go back to that whole feud that they had, a decade or so ago now with CM Punk and The Rock. And so that I thought was the best part of this. And if you want to see those little things that Triple H does well, it's this kind of stuff. You're not just building what's in front of you. You're building everything else around it for the future, which, as I mentioned in the video that I did on, The Rock beating down Cody Rhodes and what that means for a Rock-Cody Rhodes match, Rock-Roman Reigns, Cody-Roman Reigns, there's so many other things where you're tying in a lot of different stories. And I don't think it has to be as simple and cut and dry as maybe it was at one point in WWE, where you're like, hey, let's flat out tell you we want to, you're basically insulting the audience's intelligence and saying, here is the program we're working with. It's these two guys. It's these three guys. Don't think about anything else. But that's not what they do with Triple H, is that they really push the fact that just because I'm in a feud with one guy doesn't mean that I don't have my eye on this other person or the next person in line. And so that I thought was the biggest part of this segment. They set up so many different matches, whether we know we're getting Rollins versus McIntyre at WrestleMania, but we also know we're going to get Punk versus Rollins at some point. We're going to get Punk versus McIntyre, which we'll talk about in a second. That may be the biggest match of all here. And we know there's the potential now. Could you get CM Punk versus Roman Reigns? Could you get CM Punk versus The Rock? This is what keeps people tuning in. It is the suspense. It is the added thought that, hey, I need to tune in because it sounds like Punk has his sights set on all these people. I want to see him interact with all these people. And man, is that going to be exciting when CM Punk faces Roman Reigns, when CM Punk faces The Rock, when CM Punk faces Drew McIntyre, and so forth. So I thought that was the biggest thing coming out of the segment, is they did a great job kind of setting the tone with that. But what else did they do? They really defined what each of these guys are, right? And I mentioned a minute ago, the fact that they really took advantage of every single word that came out of their mouth. And you see here, you're looking at CM Punk and Seth Rollins. Of course, you had the interactions between CM Punk and McIntyre, Rollins and McIntyre, and we'll talk about that in a second. But what did they do, right? You had the exchanges between all of these guys. Like, you had all three at some point interact with the other and really deliver from their perspective, based on how things have gone to this point, what they should have delivered. They said exactly what they should have said, right? We know what Punk thinks about McIntyre. We know all McIntyre's been doing is trolling CM Punk time and time again. And he continued to play into that here, where it's almost to the level of delusion, right? McIntyre wants CM Punk to be there, which he got his wish. Punk will be the color commentator at WrestleMania, or the guest commentator, whatever they're calling it. And he's getting exactly what he wants now. He wants Punk to be there whenever he wins the championship in front of fans, finally, right? That's the character Drew McIntyre's been playing. With Seth Rollins, right? He knows that, and he was kind of the opposite. And I thought it was a great dynamic to have Rollins really point out how different he is from McIntyre here, because Rollins doesn't think about CM Punk, because, he kind of just said, hey, I'm not really thinking about you, because Rollins is the champion, right? And he doesn't know if Punk's ever going to get another shot at him, and basically saying that, Punk just needs to stay out of his way. That's kind of what it came down to with Rollins here. And I thought that was interesting, and of course you had Rollins ultimately get the one up on McIntyre, where McIntyre takes his eye off the ball, as Michael Cole said. McIntyre was too focused on CM Punk, and what happens? Rollins catches him. So now that forces Drew McIntyre to, he's so obsessed with CM Punk. Well, now he just took a shot from Seth Rollins ahead of their match in a couple weeks. And so now McIntyre has to get refocused. And how does McIntyre respond from this? And so I think if you go back and watch this, that to me is what really stood out here, is that they just did a tremendous job giving you the motivation for every single guy in the ring here. They didn't just spout off words that had no meaning, that just didn't make sense within the context of the story that they're trying to tell. Everybody explained what their motivation was, what their reason was for being out here, and what their reason was for coming at the other two guys that were out there, right? Because each of these guys has a problem with the other two. And that's what I go back to when I said a minute ago, that gives you so many other options to work with. It gives you a lot of possibilities storyline-wise in the future, because you're not just boxing yourself in here by saying, all right, we can only focus on Seth Rollins versus Drew McIntyre because that's the match at WrestleMania 40. Let's not do anything else. Let's worry about everything else after that. Triple H is like 3 steps ahead here, where we're already setting in motion matches for next year's WrestleMania. That's the way WWE used to do it, right? Back in the day. That's the way, if you go back in the really old school wrestling type days, you're selling matches way ahead of time. You're not just focusing on the next week, which I feel like, there have been wrestling promotions, whether it's WWE, WCW, whoever, kind of got into that rhythm for a while, where it's just about the next week. How do we get through the next week, the next week, the next week? But now they are building so many exciting matches and personal matches. Remember, we always bring up the old quote from the late Jerry Jarrett, how personal issues draw money. And how many personal issues did you see on this edition of Monday Night Raw? Not just in this segment, although there are clearly personal issues between Punk, McIntyre, and Rollins. But think about everything else you saw here. We talked about the video we did, with The Rock and Cody, but there were even more examples of that when you looked at some of the other stuff and the build to WrestleMania. Triple H is fully leaning into that, and this segment was kind of, I thought, the defining example of how they want to approach building storylines moving forward, putting together blockbuster pay-per-view matches, premium live event matches. I apologize. PLE. And that's how they want to do it. And it's really working out so well, because there was so much you could sink your teeth into here. You can see what each character wanted, right? Punk just wants to get his hands on Drew McIntyre because he's been trolling the hell out of him. McIntyre wants Punk to be there when McIntyre is finally crowned in a stadium in front of people the way he's always wanted. That's what he needs. His ego needs that. Rollins is just kind of saying, hey, I'm the champion. I don't have to be as maybe on edge as you two guys, because I'm the champion. I'm the one that you both are coming after. And so you kind of saw a different demeanor from Rollins here. And so that's just, you just get it. That's where, again, you talk about the differences in regimes. Triple H, whoever else is playing a role in this, they just get it. They understand what you have to do to get people invested. And now I come out of that segment saying, I got to see Rollins versus McIntyre, especially now that I know Punk is going to be 10 feet away with a headset on. But I got to see Rollins versus Punk when Punk gets back. I got to see Punk versus McIntyre when Punk gets back. That's how you do it. You just build up all these different matches, and you can do it all in one segment, which WWE proved here. And I just thought it was a great segment. I really did. I thought this was the kind of segment that not only can sell your WrestleMania match between Rollins and McIntyre, but it's going to sell tickets for all the other matches and combinations you're going to get here. Like I said, even going beyond just these three. Also talking about CM Punk versus Roman Reigns, if that becomes in play at some point a year or more from now. CM Punk versus The Rock, which seems like a match you'd want to do sooner rather than later, given, where both guys are at in their career. But there are other matches The Rock has to get to. But if those are the ones where you're like, I have to choose between CM Punk versus The Rock, or Roman Reigns versus The Rock, or The Rock versus Cody, or The Rock versus Rollins, or think about that. Think about all the intertwining stories and characters you've got right now in WWE. This is what I enjoy the most about professional wrestling. Always has been, and I feel like WWE is just hitting on every single scenario now. Doesn't always have to be perfect. There are going to be plot points you can poke holes in, I'm sure, but this gets you more invested as a fan, especially if this is kind of the professional wrestling that you enjoy, which I do. And so I thought this was tremendous stuff. Would highly suggest, if you want to go back and even get even more of the emotions from this promo, I thought this was great. I thought each guy came out with a purpose. They didn't just say stuff to say stuff. There wasn't a bunch of silliness. It was three guys that don't like each other. And they made that very clear. And that's how it should be. So I loved it. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments. Like I said, check out the other video I've done on this week's Raw, looking at that Raw Cody Rhodes finale, which was quite something, as we talked about in that video. As I've also teased, I'll have a video coming soon looking at potential predictions and my thoughts on what I think is going to happen now in the Night 2 main event, Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns for the Undisputed Universal Championship. So you can check out that on the channel as well. So hit that subscribe button so you don't miss it. Love talking professional wrestling. Enjoy all the great feedback. And let me know what you guys thought of what I thought was one of the best promo segments of the year in WWE. CM Punk, Seth Rollins, and Drew McIntyre.